Welcome to MarTech Heads, the radio show that helps tech marketers stay ahead of the game, hosted by Jeff Sheehan and Sarah Torville.
Well, welcome everyone. This is Jeff Sheehan along with Sarah Torville with the MarTech Heads radio show. And we are here with a special guest. It's great seeing you again, Devon Wijesinghe. And he is with Insightpool, a local Atlanta company. So Devon, you want to fill the audience in a bit about your background and the company itself?
I'll try and be really brief there because otherwise I could talk forever about it. But it's really awesome company that I had the fortunate privilege of leading. Previously, my background was entrepreneurial, started a couple other companies. The biggest one of them became E-Verify, which grew into one of the largest privately held information services companies. And I sold it in 2012. And the buyers were really smart. They kicked me out after about a week and had to kind of figure out what I was going to do. And so at 28, I thought I was a genius and just started becoming like an investor, and then learned really quick I'm not a genius. And then came across these guys that were working on a technology that would essentially try and figure out what songs you would like based upon your social media history instead of like iTunes Genius, but using social. I said, that's super interesting, put money into it, and then realized like, oh, this is really interesting, but it won't make any money. So what we morphed the company into in 2013 launch is what's today known as Insightpool. So Insightpool is a system of record for word-of-mouth marketing. And as you probably are seeing today at the funnel and so forth, like people, this notion of people love to buy but hate to be sold is so prevalent nowadays. They don't follow any funnel. There is no single thing. There's customer advocacy. There's all these other kinds of things. And basically, it's showcasing that word of mouth is really what moves something the most, because they're unwilling to engage with somebody prior to not have digesting it and hearing references and things of that nature before they ever talk to anybody.
So that's what you're going to be addressing here today at the Fill My Funnel conference with regard to how word of mouth plays a critical role in the adjusting to the changes in the funnel and the buyer cycle.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I'm speaking about that, and then also a panel about social selling. And again, social selling is this wildly broad topic that literally people are trying to define, but half the time people think like social selling means I sent an in-mail on LinkedIn, and that just happens to be a medium. I get like 50 in-mails a day. Well, that's not really social selling. So it's like trying to bring clarity and definition to what it means to socially sell. And so much of that is going to be compared to what is real life, because what people don't really realize is social media is simply an extension of humanity. Mm-hmm. People think of it as a medium like email marketing or something of that nature, and it's completely wrong to think of it that way. So if you do social selling wrong, you'll actually get crucified, as opposed to if you do email marketing wrong, people just ignore it. They're like, okay, whatever. So it has a net neutral connotation. Social selling can have a net negative connotation if you engage somebody in kind of a spammy, terrible manner, and then that gets syndicated. So then think about like word of mouth as a negative towards a brand, and how a brand is connected to their individual sales reps, etc. So social selling, bringing clarity and definition and articulation to what that actually means, will be one of the hot topics.
I think you have some great points there.
So you're saying it's a natural kind of extension. It shouldn't be treated as like an isolated tool. It should just be the way that we now engage with our buyers, with our prospects, with our customers, using social selling tools.
Yeah, it's super interesting because I think, you hear this somewhat, but it's basically that brands are now trying to act like consumers, and consumers are now becoming like brands. Mm-hmm. Take each of your personalities. You have a brand that's established of who you are and what you do as individuals. It might be connected to, your companies and things of that nature, but largely there's a human brand. Mm-hmm. Well, then think about whether it be Coca-Cola, one of their most successful campaigns ever that is still continuing today. Like the average campaign is about 12 to 18 months. This has gone on for about 5 years, is Share a Coke. And they're still putting money into it, where basically people have Coke cans with their names on it. So they feel this affinity. So think about a brand trying to take on personal characteristics and almost seem like a consumer, almost seem like, hey, we are your friend, we are X, we are Y, and that's the biggest brand in the world. So everybody is, this entire aspect of the funnel is completely jacked. There is no, Like you could just draw a box and put a triangle and a trapezoid and whatever else you want it to be, and that could be your funnel. It doesn't look like this anymore. And so the evolution of what's happening is scary because you can't predict it or mimic it, and it comes from all different directions. So the trick is helping people understand how to really even have a shot at playing in the new age of how we're acting.
It's so complex compared to what it used to be.
You know, it's super complex if you try and break it down into an apparatus that has all the exact touch points and no edge cases and all these things. It's really not complex, though, if I literally say, like, you're a human, I'm a human, let's say the brand is a human. All these things that happen are what we do in real life. So if you think about it that way, you distill it down to basic human traits. If I literally walk up to you and I'm like, hey, Jeff, I'm Devon, click here, buy now. When the hell's that ever worked in humanity or real life? Never. If you think about it and say, like, now everybody is acting appropriately digitally, which is simply an extension of who they are as people, then it actually becomes somewhat more simplistic because you take a human approach to it.
Yeah, I think you're right. As a matter of fact, this ties in quite nicely with Brian Kramer's H2H philosophy and his whole book and everything else on Shareology and that, and working through that. But I think it's something that so many marketers overlook, Devon.
Yeah, you know, like, it's very interesting because, so, like, Brian has done a good job on this, and actually Brian Solis has done a really incredible job on it. We published a book with him recently called Generation C, the Connected Customer. And essentially what it talks about is the simple fact that how we are motivated, or in terms of goals internally at a company, is a derivative that is really incorrect, right? Whether it be like, I need this many MQLs or SQLs, or when you speak about it in a B2B language and that context, but you don't look at, like, well, if you contacted 25 people and 5 of them actually engaged, but they were the right 5, how do you quantify that versus if you got your number at 1,000? So the reality is like, internally we have to kind of rejudge what the baseline for success is at the business, and many times it's not on traditional metrics, and there's going to be new metrics that are made up that feed what your business needs to actually generate sales, etc. And it won't just be like, oh, this many MQLs and this many this, because half the time you could have that many and then the funnel is broken, because MQL just means marketing qualified lead. That doesn't mean that it actually is going to close. And your funnel is completely jacked up, and then you dehumanize all these activities. Like, for instance, people go, oh, there's an MQL. They send it to some junior dude to, like, interrogate the person to see if they're qualified. They're like, oh, you want to buy my product? Okay, here am I to sell you, but, like, tell me about this. How many employees do you have? What's your hair color? What's your DNA sample? Give me your social security. Like, who the hell wants to give all that?
Yeah,
like,
they should know that beforehand.
They should have. They should be using.
That's the whole point of the social channels.
Exactly. They should have that ability so that when you engage, and I understand qualification, but it should be something so human.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it should be like, you know what? I just want to be upfront with you. A lot of customers see success at this level, but sometimes it's a little too early. So just let me know kind of where you stand there, because I want to make sure this works post-transaction. We don't care about getting the sale. We care about keeping a customer. And so that's the key element that people just don't understand, and that they've got to garner as they think about the funnel.
So Devon, explain. I mean, it all sounds great, and I completely agree that it should be natural. People buy from people. We want to humanize things. I love all that, and that, you know, I think we all can agree that we like to buy in that way. But so Insightpool, what does it provide? What is that platform? How does it pull all this together?
Yeah, so Insightpool uses some really cool technology developed by a lot smarter people than me. So we have, like, astrophysics in data science, and we actually have a rocket scientist that actually works at the company. And it's funny, he's from Columbia, but I didn't know if it was Columbia the university or Columbia the country, and that made a big difference. But he actually said he's from both, so it was
better.
Even better. Yeah. So it's really interesting because there's things like graph, and basically where if I engage you because you're the right party, and I become human, and I get you to syndicate that content, then I can use graph technology to understand that you clicked on it, and that he clicked on it, and that so-and-so, and then what happened with them. So think of it as if you could map that entire journey, and then when people click on it coming from you, it actually moves with greater velocity because it seems like a referral. If I get Jeff to talk about something, if I get Brian or whoever it might be to talk about something, it actually moves with a greater speed because it almost seems like a referral when other people are clicking on it. So what our technology does is identifies those parties, predicts which ones are most likely to engage with you as the brand, and then creates an engagement automation engine to be able to do that correctly, and then measures all the different touch points and successes there. Then it takes those characteristics and feeds it into paid media so that when you buy paid media, it's not demographics. Because there's a death of demographics and a rise of characteristics. Likely, if I were just to see you guys as a demographic, I wouldn't maybe say like, oh, you guys are active on social or this, that, and the other. I would have bucketed you just from demographics, right? Our software looks beyond that and says, what are the characteristic elements of people that are getting them to convert? How many, like, what's the color of their profile photo? Really insane stuff. And then uses that to feed that to paid media. So it's an organic engine that gets word of mouth going and then adds scale to it by pushing it to paid media in the right characteristic way.
So Devon, do you have any, this sounds great, and I'm excited about this platform. And I know when we spoke to you beforehand, we came away thinking it sounds a phenomenal tool. But tell me, how are people, I mean, are you seeing great results? Are your clients seeing great results? Can you share?
Yeah, for sure. Mm-hmm. So if you take, just take Coca-Cola, for example.
Correct.
And we have B2B brands and we have all kinds of ones because B2B buyers are acting similar to B2C consumers nowadays. But like take Coke with Share a Coke. What they wanted to do is be able to locate influential parties that were disappointed but not pissed off that their name wasn't on a can, right? So interesting, right? And we were able to figure out who those parties were, who the influential ones were, target them and say, Jeff, you'd be on the can, but like Umang or somebody else like that, like, hey, we're sorry about that, but you can create your own customized one here. What do you think? We'd love to see Umang on the can. And people are like, holy crap, like this brand actually reached out to me and like cares about me as an individual. Yeah. And what we saw was the KPI result was that like the coupon redemptions for the cans, we drove 8x more than they'd ever seen inside of that target market. So, there's a million different other ones, but the reality is that brands want the right people to take those types of actions. And so our software facilitates that. The area that is still early is that how can you get somebody to manage that control center? So what we do is have taken the philosophy of like, we're going to, white glove this process for you. You can put the world's best software in front of somebody, and if they have no idea how to even think, not just how to use it, like interface and so forth, but how to think about like, how should I speak to Brian or whoever? Like, how should I do that?
It's a whole education change.
That's the part change. That yes. So that's the part where we'll help them and be an extension to them and create tight partnerships. And then as the evolution happens where there's these successes, internally they'll start dedicating parties to this and start handing that over. Just like we saw with email marketing and so forth. When people start getting titles that they're like the head of influencer marketing or they're the head of XYZ, that's when you know that the market is getting really big. So we're in early stages of that where it's growing really fast. Everybody talks about it. We're helping them actually implement it, and we're seeing this hockey stick come up really quickly, and then we intend to be the ones that lead.
So you're
that.
really humanizing the marketing process, personalizing it to the extremes with regard to what you're doing in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so the interesting part is like I don't think it's like a nice to have anymore. Like I think it's a have to have, because I'll take an example of us. Just it doesn't matter if you're millennials, if you're 70 and above, it doesn't matter. If somebody calls your cell phone and you don't know the number, you will not pick it up.
Yes.
Nobody picks it up. It's just a simple fact. So now just take that and apply that in any level of marketing. Like if nobody responds when you knock on their door direct in such a manner that's like in a sales approach, but they do respond to when they see others talking and taking action, etc., and they want to jump in. So it's the adage that's truer today than ever before, that people love to buy but hate to be sold.
So you're adding a service element to your solution here. You're saying that it's a mindset change, and maybe not all organizations have that mindset change. So are you going in and actually managing that process for them so that and helping them to drive ROI that way? Yeah,
so we think like it's interesting when you look at the birth of great companies, whether it be like Exact, Target, and several others that literally held people's hands. Salesforce, as an example. Salesforce would literally go have little meetings around different cities, holding somebody's hand and doing that. And we believe like we don't need to fall into the class of like, we think there's SaaS, and then we want to create something called SWAS, software with a service. Like when you hold somebody's hands and when you do that, they recognize results and they feel empowered and they feel like they have a partner. You do that when you're trying to build a great company. You don't do that because you're trying to, hit your Series A and your services component is X to Y to Z. The reality is like when you're building something to stand the test of time, you do things that are right in the beginning as opposed to try to do things that scale perfectly in the beginning. Like Joe Gebbia, he's one of the founders of Airbnb, a $25 billion company. He's from Georgia, actually. And, I was talking to him and he was basically saying like, they went on those first trips to Airbnb and they went, and that's when they figured out that they needed a payment module because it was like, okay, welcome to our home. Okay, have this food. And there was this awkward moment. The guy was like, so when are you going to pay me? Right? Like all these nuances need to take effect and you need to understand that because you won't ever do that when you just say, here's some software. Good luck.
Get on with it. I think that's been the biggest downfall of a lot of companies, that they pass it on and expect somebody in marketing or sales to manage it, and it falls through the cracks because it's just another thing to do. And then if the mindset change is not there, you got to educate, and that takes time. So
there's, it's interesting because there's 2,000 companies inside of this MarTech landscape, and then probably like 5 more since we've been sitting here. And so the decade of the CMO is it's crazy hot, rising like, like just a tsunami. However, there's a lot of fallout that will take effect if you have great technology is just not what stands the absolute test of time. It's great partnerships, great learning, and technology obviously.
And also simple solutions. They can't be too complex because of the fact that otherwise people ignore them. You can't shove things down people's throats for the sake of this is the best thing since sliced bread, and people will not adopt it. Unless they adopt it, it won't be successful.
That's exactly right. And the trick is like we've actually acquired companies. We acquired a company in San Francisco. We're looking at acquiring some companies in New York right now too. And great, wonderful technology, but didn't have that line of sight to like when people become deer in the headlights because they just don't know how to think. Our job is to help teach them that entire process.
So I was going to ask you, Kay, what do you think are the disruptors happening in MarTech right now? And I haven't heard of, maybe I'm a little bit naive, I haven't heard of SWAS before.
Yeah,
would you
like
say that's a bit of a
either.
Would you say that's a disruptor coming through? I mean, that becomes
so
quite generic.
I think that's a disruptor, but also the theory of MadTech. So think of combining marketing technology with advertising technology. So you combine MarTech and AdTech, you get MadTech. And of course, we're in the process of trademarking that. But the point is that the two don't talk to each other. The next massive disruptor is humanizing all aspects of advertising technology in conjunction with marketing technology so you know what to do and that you have the audience to add scale. And that's going to come and displace a ton of companies really quickly unless you're ready for it.
Well, Devon, I can tell you it's been a real pleasure having you on the show today and spending time here at Flip My Funnel with us. And I hope you enjoy the rest of the show today. And you have some great contributions that you will be making, I'm sure, and the people will absolutely love you and what you have to say. And it's been a real pleasure interviewing once again, Devon. And
well, thank you. If they don't go to sleep during when I speak, I'll count it a
No, absolutely. No,
They're not going to go to sleep. You've been speaking cool acronyms. I mean, you've got to keep those things going. MadTech, SWAS, we've got it all going on.
Make sure to tweet that out and give me trademark credit way before I deserve it.
No, excellent. You always have great ideas. You're always pushing the envelope, and you're so energetic and everything else.
That's why my staff sends me in all these interviews because they don't want me pushing the envelope that far.
What a great way to start off the day for us.
Thank you, Devon.
My pleasure. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.